Good evening. Welcome to the OMB News Report radio broadcast for Monday, January 14th, 2013. This evening I want to talk a little bit about the Palestinian-Israel situation. And this time King Abdullah II of Jordan has kind of weighed in on the subject. Headlines in the newspaper, BusinessWeek.com says Jordan's king warns of tensions unless peace talks revive. Now, I personally like Jordan's King Abdullah II. I think if you look at all of the Arab leaders in the Middle East, he is one of the more moderate leaders, and I have a lot of respect for him. However, I understand he is Arab, or at least he identifies with being Arab. He is more correctly half Caucasian, since his mother was from England, and but he identifies as being Arab. That's fine. And I understand his position. He's surrounded by more radical Muslims than he is, and what his country is. However, I want to point out, and I have pointed this out time and time again, it's not a question if Israel wants peace. It is a question of when the Palestinians finally decide that they've had enough of war. And a long time ago, somebody said that there'll be peace in the Middle East when the Palestinians begin to love their own children more than they hate the Jews. And that's absolutely true. The ones who are really being victimized in all of this is the children, the Palestinian children. But what's happening is generation after generation after generation of Palestinian children are being brainwashed by the indoctrination, hate the Jews. This is a brainwashing that they have suffered for I don't know how many generations, long before the independence of Israel, and it goes way back into the 20s and beyond that. The Jews, as well as the Arabs, have been in Jerusalem and Israel for countless years, countless generations, and they do not get along. That's fact one. And so whenever the Palestinians seriously want peace, then peace will be there for them. But this is not going to happen as long as gangster organizations like Hamas are occupying the Gaza Strip, and as long as the Palestinian Authority, this is in the West Bank. And these are things that King Abdullah II understands. There's no question. He's a very well-educated man. His wife is Palestinian. And so, given all that, I understand. But to the rest of the world, to the English world, to the Western world, you have to take a realistic perspective of what's going on in the Middle East. It's not a question of, Israel deciding it's going to sit down and talk to the Palestinians. They've been willing to talk all along. But the problem is the Palestinian Authority President, Mahmoud Abbas, demanding a settlement memorandum as a precondition to talks. Now, Netanyahu says no negotiations with one who embraces Hamas. And as we know, Mahmoud Abbas has, in recent times, become very friendly with Hamas. So, of course, Israel is not going to negotiate with Hamas. Hamas has never recognized the legitimacy of the Israeli government or the Israeli people to exist. So Netanyahu says if Abbas comes to the negotiating table without preconditions, he'll find me on the other side. And now this is what Netanyahu says in a television interview. The Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday said he does not believe that Palestinian Authority Chairman Mahmoud Abbas is serious about reaching a peace agreement with Israel. I have myself seen nothing at all that tells me that Abbas is serious. So, but yet you've got a rally of people like the King of Jordan who weighs in and infers the blame upon Israel. And this is just fair. It's not factual. Now the King of Jordan, Abdullah II, is quoted as saying, "We do not have 4 more years to wait for the next U.S. president to work on Middle East peace, particularly considering that Israeli settlements are eating up all Palestinian lands." Commenting on widespread international condemnation of preliminary plans to build 3,000 new housing units in the E1 corridor connecting Jerusalem with Ma'ale Adumim. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce that Arab, the name of that Arab community or town. The King Abdullah II said the world was united against unilateral Israeli action in the West Bank. The international community displayed a strong stance against settlements, which we agree are one of the main obstacles to peace, especially in E1 areas, he said. That's what the King Abdullah II said. Now, I take a great disagreement with that. Who is he, with all due respect to the king, who is he to state without a doubt that the entire world is on the side of the Palestinians? No, I don't think you can speak for the entire world. You might speak for the Arab world, but we already know how the Arabs feel toward the Palestinians and toward the Israelis. So, King Abdullah, if you have so much passion and compassion for the Palestinians, why don't you just go ahead and invite them back into your country, and maybe you'll have some of the same problems your father had with them back in the 70s, the 60s and 70s. If you will remember your history, as well as I remember it, you had to run the Palestinian, the PLO, out of your country, and you also had Syria come into Jordanian territory, and you had to fight the Syrians at the same time that you were trying to drive the PLO out. You'll also remember that that was the occasion when Yasser Arafat escaped from Jordan disguised as a woman. And if I'm not mistaken, he was even carrying a little baby, a toy baby, to pass himself off as an Arab woman. Now, the king made a statement from the royal palace and told a delegation from the Washington-based American-Israeli Public Affairs Committee that regional changes tied to the Arab Spring should drive the Israeli government to embrace peace. Well, King Abdullah, the Israelis have already embraced peace. The problem is that Hamas does not embrace peace, and the Palestinian Authority does not truly embrace peace. In his talks Monday with the pro-Israeli group, the king also called on Israel to stop measures that he said hindered peace efforts, including West Bank settlement construction. The king urged Israel, the Palestinians, and the U.S. to resume peacemaking efforts. He called for direct talks based on a two-state solution, which envisions the establishment of a Palestinian state. He said it remains the only formula to end the 65-year-old conflict. Well, I'm personally in favor of a two-state solution because it's well known and well documented that the Palestinians are the most racist people on the planet, and they teach their children the same hatred that's within their heart. Now, there are plenty of Palestinians that live within the borders of Israel proper, and they generally have no problems with the Israelis as long as they do not throw rocks at Israeli soldiers. But it's the same with Gaza and the West Bank. If you send your children out there to throw rocks at Israeli soldiers, you're running a risk that they will be injured. Now, how more simple can I put it than that? But as far as the U.S. resuming peacemaking efforts, why the hell should we in the United States continue to even trouble ourselves? It is not our responsibility to make peace. If the Palestinians want peace, the door is open. Go ahead and sit down and talk to the Israelis. However, Israel is not going to put up with you importing arms and ammunition from places like Iran and Saudi Arabia, and only to be used to fight the next war against Israel. It's just not going to happen. Now, Yasser Arafat, as a prime example, was notorious for saying one thing to his English audience that he was addressing, and then turning right around and saying the exact opposite to his Arab-speaking audience. The entire Lebanese war can be blamed directly upon the Palestinians. The suffering of the Lebanese people is a direct result of the PLO and Yasser Arafat. Everywhere he went, blood was shed. Again, I emphasize the West is sick and tired of, hearing about the Palestinians and their plight. We don't care anymore. It's been going on for 50 years, my entire life. And we are sick and tired of hearing about it. We could care less whether the Palestinians have a homeland or whether Israel runs over top of Gaza and the West Bank with their tanks. We do not care. We're going to take a commercial break, and this is Randall Bundy, your host with the R&B News Report radio broadcast. We'll be back in a few minutes after this commercial break.